Hello, everybody. We are back after a wonderful summer vacation. Welcome back to Nordic Coffee Chats, the podcast that helps you crack the code of Danish culture and daily life. I'm Kathy,
I'm Leslea.
and between the two of us, we share about almost 40 years of living in Denmark.
Yeah, it's nearly 19 for me. How many for you?
It's 15. Okay, so we're,
Yeah, we've had a few years here.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we're still here. So,
Yes.
on today's episode, we thought we would focus a bit on debunking some of the myths that accompany life in Denmark. A lot of these you will hear online or you will read about. There is maybe a grain of truth there, but actually, we want to really deep dive into them and, from our perspective, tell you what we think about these myths that we continuously hear about Denmark and living in Denmark.
So we've probably lived through most of them, or
Mhm.
we've experienced most of them. But let's look at the myth one that we often hear. We often hear spoken. Well, everyone in Denmark speaks perfect English, so you don't need to learn Danish. So what would you say about that, Kathy?
That is true. We do hear it a lot. And the first thing I would say is yes, if you come to Copenhagen, most people will speak English or be able to speak English. However, not everyone moves to the Copenhagen area. People live in different regions of Denmark. Denmark is a small country, but it is actually very diverse region to region. And in some regions, some of Jutland, some of Fyn, it is not 100% given that people will be speaking English. They may know it, but they may not be comfortable with using it if they don't use it on a daily basis. So that is actually a big myth that you don't need to learn Danish. I would say even for those of us living in Copenhagen, if you're living in a country, you need to learn the language. You need to put in the effort, not just for the locals, but for your own sake. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I was probably one of very few who had in-laws who didn't speak English. So from day
There
one,
you
we
go.
had a language barrier. So I had to use my husband to translate, and it was frustrating on both sides because my mother-in-law just wanted to chat, and have a little gossip through the day. And of course, I'm saying, What are you talking about? Who? And so that was really frustrating. And I know for me, when I was so homesick on those early years, we've talked about it before, but I didn't want to learn Danish because I was so homesick,
Mm.
thought it was difficult. I was 41, I was pregnant, brain wasn't working
Oh,
great. And
goodness.
the last time I'd learned a language, I was 7. I was learning French from the age of 7. So I really struggled. And I would honestly say, even 18 years later, I'll sometimes go to a family gathering and I feel like I'm a different person
Hmm.
because I haven't really. So of course I can speak Danish. I ring scat in Danish. I ring, I rely on my husband when we're out because he is Danish, but I do manage. But honestly, I would say that that extra nuance of just chatting, gossip, getting the joke, I think I still miss out that.
Hmm.
But at least I can talk to my family. I can talk to my nieces and my nephews, and I can actually go to listen to a podcast in Danish. I might miss some of it, but I'll get the grasp of it. And I think at some point, especially if you're at a party and a few drinks are had, they won't think, oh, that person doesn't speak Danish. They'll just think, ah, great party, and then suddenly everything's in Danish, and you're sitting there not able to be part of it. So if you're married to a Dane or you're here with, maybe an organization which is predominantly Danes, I would really say try and learn it and just ask somebody in the office to help you. Like at lunchtime, do you think we could do 15 minutes of speaking Danish? Can you help me with my pronunciation?
Yeah.
If you give a Dane a permission to help you, they love it. They will never ever help you. They won't be that rude. They're so polite. They won't go, oh, you didn't say that right. You need to say it like this. But if you say, can you help me?
Yeah.
Then they will.
But
So
also,
family, but
first 5 years of
yeah,
of anyone coming here to Denmark, you have free access of Danish lessons.
Free lessons.
You have free lessons. The key is you
Mm.
can't be here. If you've been here for over 5 years, then you have to pay for your own
Yeah.
language courses. So it would almost be, a bit silly not to take that up and use it to your own advantage to learn at least the basics.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You need a CPR. You obviously need your CPR
yeah,
to access that. But once you've got that little yellow card, you can access Danish lessons and go. I mean, some schools are better than others, some teachers are better than others, and sometimes you'll have a lot of people in your class and sometimes very few. And it was definitely hit and miss for me, depending on the teacher. But at least you get the books, at
yeah.
least you get the basics, and you can start practicing. And there's some fantastic people out there, not just teaching Danish,
Amazing.
and we'll give some recommendations in the comments section from this. But there's also people who are not native speakers who have gone through the lesson and said, right, can we get a cafe going? Can we have a There's loads of places where you can practice, so you don't have to feel completely alone. And I'm actually speaking that I should actually listen to myself when I say this. Just speak it more and don't worry about what you sound like. That was my problem. I
Hmm.
wanted to be
Yeah,
perfect.
trying to be perfect.
I
Yeah,
wanted people to think I was Danish, and if I didn't do it right, I just
yeah.
stopped. You've just got to run with it because it's
You
really
gotta
hard to
run
sound
with it.
Danish. Yeah.
And also, if you're here for the long run, if you are planning on staying here, you need the Danish. You need your dansk poetry in order to apply for permanent
Yeah.
residency. So that is also something we sometimes see people overlooking, and then they're panicking because they don't have that, which
Yeah.
really is a massive, massive criteria for
Yeah.
receiving that. So you need to be strategic and think ahead. And
Yeah.
I would just say, go for it. It's free, it's available. There are good schools. Some companies will even provide extra if you are working or your spouse is working or partner. They can get private lessons. Not everybody, but there are so many options when it comes to the language and support in Denmark. So use
And
that,
I
please.
and I would say if you're negotiating now to come here with your job, try and get that as part of the package
Yeah,
and say, do you think we could add in some Danish lessons, maybe for you and your partner? That would
exactly.
be a good one. Try and negotiate that into your package because that's going to help you as well
Hmm.
until you get settled, get the CPR number and all that type of thing. So, but yes, and I think it's only the Dutch that speak better English than the
Yeah,
Danes. But the Danes, Sweden, Norway, all speak brilliant English. Of course they do, and they're fantastic at it. But not every Dane feels comfortable. You've said that previously. And you'd be surprised when they say, "Oh, my English is not very good." It's always brilliant, by the way. But not everyone feels comfortable. When you're visiting home in a work context, you want to be able to join in on the
for
conversation and
sure.
make the Danes feel comfortable in as well. So yeah.
Exactly. And if you're new, you can always say, I'm sorry, I haven't learned the language yet, which is a beautiful message to send.
Yeah.
Is it okay that we speak English? And I think that is even for some people who may not feel 100% comfortable, they will go an extra mile then because we are showing respect and we're being humble. We're not assuming that this is a language that everyone uses on a daily basis.
Yeah. So first one, if you can, learn some Danish. Second one, we often hear this, and there's a lot of chatter goes on in Facebook groups. I don't see it as much nowadays, but I used to see it all the time. It was all about Dane bashing. Danes are cold, closed off, and don't want foreign friends. What would you say, Kathy?
So I would say here, let's take a look at ourselves. A lot of us are adults. It's difficult to make friends in
Yeah.
adulthood, period, no matter where you are. I don't think Danes are cold. I think, and again, this is just my personal
Yeah.
perspective on this, right? I think Danes are, and we're generalizing because what does that mean, Danes? The people I've come in contact with are very kind, very helpful. They, of course, want to know, are you here for a longer time and I think we have the same if we were back in our home country and we had a lot of internationals investing time in friendships as adults is time consuming. A lot of people have families, partners, spouses. They have activities, they have work. So volunteering. So the time starts to become really limited. So who you
Yeah.
spend your time with, who you meet up with, you have to be selective. So I don't think it's fair to say that this is how the Danes are. I would say also, and please tell me what you think, that Danes do tend to lean towards people that they have something in common with. So if
Yeah.
you're in a gym or an association or a club, it will be much easier to get to know people because there is some kind of connection that you share. Trying to chat up people that you don't know or you meet randomly, this is not the place. I
Yeah.
think, the US is much easier to do that, have a chat with someone or just casually say, hey, we should have a coffee. I think here it's taken, not to say more seriously, but if people do that, then they're already investing a bit in you. If they're meeting you, if they're having a coffee with you, if you are going out to eat together, being invited to a Danish home is definitely a sign that people really want to be your friend and that you're on the way of becoming friends because the homes are pretty sacred. They are
Yeah.
sanctuaries. They are a place where people really, that's where they relax, where they are with family, they are themselves. So that is a big deal. But I would definitely not say cold, closed off, and don't want foreign friends. There are so many Danish people I have met who are interested, are curious. A lot of them have also lived abroad, so they, in a way, know what it's like, and they're very, very kind and always willing to help out and lend an ear, a hand, whatever they can. I think it's different than in many countries, and therefore it's perceived as cold or unwilling because there's a bit of distance. People have to
Yeah.
get to know you. They have to
Yeah.
start to trust you. It is a trust-based society, and once that happens, they open up. What do you
Yeah.
think?
I think so. I think in the early years, I expected them to be like the British, which is crazy. I wasn't living in, my hometown or my home country. And I think at first, I think because I was so standoffish, because I was so homesick. But I would say now I've got so many Danish friends.
Mm,
And, once you make a Danish friend, you make them for life. They're very loyal. And I found actually that it's not that they're cold, they just don't want to interfere. They
hmm.
don't want to invade your personal space. They don't want to think, oh, what if I ask them? They don't really want to do that. They sort of hold back. So that's my impression that I found. But once you make a friend, you friend for life. For example, I'm sitting outside today. I'm in the centre of Copenhagen, near Nordport Station, having a coffee with a friend. And I said to what I could hear an American couple beside me, would you watch my handbag? I'll just go and get a coffee. And when I came out, these lovely Danish ladies, they said in English because they could hear me asking them, oh, don't worry, we've been watching your handbag for you. And I said, that's so kind. Thank you very much. So to say that Danes would be frosty is crazy because actually they did that without even asking. I said, oh gosh, it's so sweet. Thank you.
Yeah,
Um, so it's not that. And you hear a lot of that, but I think it's how you approach what your expectations are. And yes, they do have friends from childhood. They have friends from after school, or they have friends from university. Of course they do. And I think that for them, it's very much like we're very busy. You tend to find both parents work. And then if they have children, they're picking them up and taking
yeah,
them to different things. It's actually difficult to then keep adding friends to your network.
it is.
So that's what I've found. But I've had friends talk about that in England, saying it took them years to make friends. And I said, "Are you kidding? I thought we were so open." So, but like you said, we're adults. It's very different. Kids is easier, but
It
for
is.
adults, it's much harder. So I don't think they're cold. I don't think they're closed up. I think they're just hold back. They don't want to invade your personal space. Is how I would describe it.
Yeah. I
Um,
also think the thing, we didn't mention that, but I think the thing that comes often up is that they're rude.
I don't know. So sometimes it's like lost in translation.
Hmm.
It'll say like, no, I was told you should have a bike when I first tried. Why should I have a bike? But it was just how you translate the Danish into the English. It's not a command. It's like it's a suggestion.
Yeah,
So sometimes it sounds a bit,
yeah,
but I'm from the north of England and we call a spade a spade. So I find it quite refreshing. It
yeah.
suits me. But I know from different cultures that can feel quite abrupt. But it's just the direct translation from the Danish to English sometimes
And it's
doesn't
very straightforward, right? There's no,
straightforward. Yeah.
yeah, like Polish language,
Mm.
and I think even American language, there are a lot of like niceties, and people go around before they get to the gist of what it is that they want
Yeah.
to carry across. Where I think in Danish, it's just, no, I don't want to, or no, thank you. And that's that. And people, it's very efficient language, and
Yeah.
hence it may come across as someone is being rude, but they're just being honest.
Yeah. Yeah. So just being efficient. Yeah.
Hmm.
Functional. Enterprise with very functional.
Hmm.
We learn digital demo. It's very functional. Everything just works. Buses are on time, trains are on time. It's very functional. So if you see them in that way, and but I don't know how many times I've stopped people say, "Oh, can you help me?" Straight away they just stop, no problem at all. So
Yeah.
maybe it's what you give off as well. I think once
I
you start
totally think
smiling,
so.
yeah,
I think,
yeah,
if you do this, and I do this sometimes when I'm on the street, I just smile at people and I see, okay, how many people are going to smile back, right? It is the energy that we bring and how we carry ourselves that we get it back. Of course, you'll get a
yeah,
grumpy person once in a while, and that's normal. Someone might have a
yeah,
bad day or just not
yeah,
feel well. But overall, I would definitely say no, not cold. I think it's read wrong. I think as you said, they're very polite and don't want to invade your
yeah,
space or come across as, being very, I know it all. It's
yeah,
actually the opposite. If you
yeah,
need something, you come and ask us.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
very pushy, yeah.
Mhm.
So the next one would be Danish workplaces have no hierarchy. Everyone is just equal. There's a little bit of truth in that. There's half truth, half not, half myth. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think I'm glad we're doing these myth busters because not only are they myths, but I would say they're very much generalizations. So we have to be very careful, right? With Danes are like this.
Yeah.
There's hierarchy in Danish workplaces. My goodness. What does that mean? I mean, Danish workplaces, there are so many different ones, right? We have the university, there's hierarchy at the university.
Yeah.
We have startups, there might
Mhm.
be zero hierarchy at a startup. There are large corporations, some of them are flat, some of them have some hierarchy, and some, we talked about this, very large corporation I've worked with before, they differ from department to department. So some departments are very hierarchy oriented. It also depends who works there, who's managing. Is it
Yeah.
Nordic, Danish management? Is it international? What are they working with? Who are they
Yeah.
dealing with? So it's easy to say that, but it's very complicated. Medium-sized, small enterprises, it also depends, right? I think it depends on the industry, depends on the clients, depends on, as I said, whose management, where the management is from. So overall, yes, we lean very much towards
Yeah.
flat hierarchy. It is much more casual. It is much easier to speak to your bosses, to managers. We don't, in general, use titles to
No.
address each other at work. There's not so much attention paid, again, unless it's academia or maybe other industries, to titles. But overall, no one would use a title to address their boss or manager. Um, we want people to speak up at meetings. We want to hear what everyone has to say. So again, that's different when we look at hierarchy, that even student workers are always
Yeah.
encouraged to say what they think, share their opinions, come up with solutions. So everyone has a right to voice their opinion and disagree, which I think is always very
Yeah.
interesting. You can disagree with colleagues, bosses. That's very much accepted.
It's a culture shock for some. Even for me coming from the UK, if you're coming from Asia, where you're very used to a very clear hierarchy, that you're coming here and suddenly, you're asked for your opinion. You're sorry, what? Because if you're not the boss, so I think that can be a bit of a culture shock. And it is very much like, what do you think? What do you think? I mean, somebody at the end of the day has to make a decision. But I think that collaboration, that sort of team effort
Mhm.
is very much very different for a lot of people when they come here.
Yeah.
So if you've never worked in that sort of environment, I think that can be a bit of a shock. But it's when I say to dates, it's a flat hierarchy, they go, little wry smile. And I think, yeah, because it's not one thing. It's a nuance, isn't it, depending on where you're working, like what you said, and sectors as well.
Completely. And it's a matter
Yeah,
of perspective, right? Because
yeah,
maybe for someone who's Swedish, a Danish
yeah,
workplace might seem wow. But for someone, as you mentioned, who comes from a country in Asia coming to Denmark, they will think, what? There's,
yeah,
absolutely no one pays attention to titles or
yeah.
what your education is, where you have your degree from. So, yeah, I think the cultural perspective is really important to keep in mind when we're speaking about such topics as to everyone in Denmark has flat hierarchy at their jobs. Yeah.
Yeah, quite that. And this one sort of is very similar. Danish work culture means good work-life balance. So everyone hears, oh, it's a great life balance, whatever you want to say. So, and it sort of hints a little bit on that as well, doesn't it? It's really, really does depend on the organization. Depends on your boss, who your line manager is. I was having a conversation early today. A friend had just got a new job and she'd look, I've got to be honest with you. 3 days a week, I need to leave at 2 to pick my son up from school. Is that okay with you? Because I'm just laying it out here now. And she said, absolutely, that's fine. She said, of course I'm going to do the work, and she does it later in the evening. But she wanted to say that's what I need as part of my new job. And they said, absolutely, because I know she'll deliver. So I think I would never, ever have asked that if I was in the UK. As a
Hmm.
woman in management, saying I need to leave early to pick my kids up, it's like, what? It would just be, yeah, it just wouldn't happen. And I don't think it's getting any better. I left there 18 years ago, but I honestly wouldn't think it's easier for parents. It's just like this expectation that your
Yeah.
hours are 9 to 5, you are in the office, that is it. And I've heard it been said when people try to arrive later because of the traffic in the UK, leave earlier, suddenly that wasn't allowed. And I thought, for goodness sake, that person's doing the hours, they're arriving at 7 a.m.
Exactly.
So instead, they arrive at 9. It takes them 2.5, 3 hours to get there, and yeah, and that was long before COVID, so everyone was coming to the office. But so yeah, it really does depend on the organisation and who you work for.
Completely. I mean, I have two examples. I think one I've used before in one of our episodes, but one was I was on the train and there was a woman, she was speaking English and she was obviously speaking to a colleague and she was saying, I really don't know what we should do because we can't have this. We can't have, it was the manager expecting us to work after 5 p.m. in the afternoon. I know that that's what this person, she was saying, is used to because this person is here alone. Their family is not here, so they don't have
Yeah,
anything else. But that is not something that we signed up for. So I just thought, wow, this is so interesting to hear
yeah,
that. Um, and that can happen.
yeah,
The other example, a lovely colleague who switched working from one very large corporation to a different one now, and said that in the previous corporation, it was normal to receive emails 24/7. And depending on who was sending them, some people would expect you to write back. This is a Danish company.
yeah,
So this here that it's, oh, this life balance, everyone leaves the office at 4, there are no emails after. Absolutely not. So now being at this new company, shocked by the fact that it is silent after 5 p.m. and it's frowned upon for anyone
yeah,
to break that silence because people have families, people have things that they're doing. It's the company culture, right? People need to recharge in order for them to be able to come back next day to work and be fully on.
yeah,
So, and we've talked about this multiple times, you and I. Again, depending on the sector or industry, financial sectors, if you're a manager or higher
yeah,
up, you will be working late.
yeah.
You will be. So it's not true. If you're coming here and you have a, spouse or partner who's in one of these sectors or is in management, please don't hold your breath that this person will be back home every day at 3 o'clock.
Especially with organisations now saying, right, we want everyone back in the office. So that great balance of being able to work from home and not
Mhm.
having to commute. They were delivering. And suddenly it's, well, no, we want you back in the office now, at least 4 days a week, 3 days a week.
Mhm.
And you think, yeah, so I don't think that's an expectation you can have coming here, but it's still a lot better than what I'm used to.
It is.
So I would work 9 to 5, but there'd be an expectation I'd be there early. And then I would stay late. Oh, what? Already leaving? It's only 5 o'clock. And I thought, well, I'll finish at 5. It would take me 2 hours to drive home, 15 miles.
My
You know,
goodness.
craziness. So that's what I was used to. So for me, this has been amazing, the
Yeah,
different organizations I've worked in. But honestly, not everyone's the same. It isn't. But it is so much better than what most
it
people are
is.
used to. Yeah.
And most places, as you said, people want you to be honest. People want to know what's going on. If this in your life, you have small kids or you have aging parents or you have, a day where you need to leave early, no one wants you to hide that. I think it's very normal for people to speak about that and for people to know, right, of course, this person has to leave today. And colleagues, no one cares really, honestly, that you're leaving or I mean, I think in general, we're in a country where if you do your work,
Yeah.
your work gets done. How you do it, how you manage your time, that's on you.
And I think if you can't perform within those hours and you always need to be working into the evening, is that you're not good at there's an impression that you're not good with time management or you
Exactly.
can't do your job. So is there going to be a conversation with your boss coming up? Because
It's
why
actually the
can't you
opposite,
be,
right? Where in
yeah,
a
why
lot of
can't you
countries, like, what
function?
an excellent employee.
Brilliant. She's here all day. She doesn't leave till 10 o'clock at night, type of thing. Whereas here it'd be like, why do you need all that time to do that job? What is wrong with you, type of thing. So there's always a conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah, depending on what level you're at and what type of organization we said before. But we've talked about this before. It is amazing compared to many countries.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very accommodating. I would say it's very, very human approach in
Yeah.
most companies.
And the final one we're going to talk about is Danes are a happy nation. They often get this happiest nation in the world. At the moment, I think we're tipped by Finland again. So people have this impression that Danes walk around smiling and happy and joyous. Actually, that's not quite what it means. But let's debunk that a little bit, Kathy, with your experience of what your impression was. When people read that, they think happiest nation, they are happy, friendly, outgoing. It doesn't mean that. It means they're super happy with what they've got.
Yeah, I mean, this is my pet peeve. I've talked about this a lot. Um, I don't like buzzwords. I feel like this is such a huge buzzword. Also, in general, about the Nordics. If you do research, and I don't want to do like a Debbie Downer right now, but the amount of alcohol and depressants that are consumed in the Nordics due to where we are located and also how our weather is, and sometimes where people live in great distances from other people, and so on and so forth, it has nothing to do with happiness. And I think also, defining happiness, it's a fleeting emotion, so that's really weird to use that word. Um, the word I use when I talk about Danes, but also the Nordic countries, I would say we are very content. We're extremely content with the life quality that we get to experience living in these wonderful countries. So it makes a difference. It doesn't sound maybe as fun and sexy as
Yeah,
the internet wants it to sound, or these surveys, who's the happiest
yeah,
nation currently. But it really, the contentment reflects on the life quality, and that is very true. I think if you survey people, and there are surveys done,
yeah,
um, people are content with the life quality, with what we get. I know we're not talking about this, but paying high taxes, we get a lot of worth for the money that we pay into SCAT. Free healthcare, we have free education, universities. And of course, again, this is unfortunately not for everyone because if you're outside of the EU, that will not be the case. So I apologize. But when we talk about the EU, and of course, people residing, living, and being born in Denmark, we have a lot of, care from the government. We
yeah,
live in a safe country.
Yeah.
You still see this. Kids are walking back from home, cycling alone, very small children. There's a trust in the society. There
Yeah.
is a well-being. People look out for each other. There's a sense of trust.
Yeah.
So I think all of this is why people feel that they are content, that they live in a good place, that they feel taken care of and pretty safe.
And I've seen lots of conversation with some people who, oh yeah, it sounds great, but it's this. And of course, not everyone's going to be happy. But I have to say that Danes are very much like, well, we pay taxes so everyone can be equal. So there is this, everyone should have access to
Yeah.
healthcare, everyone should have access to university. You know, if I even just take a look back at my own country now, actually education now is getting out of realms for lots of big parts of society in the UK because to actually start paying off those student loans, the interest rate is so ridiculous that
Yeah.
they're paying it off and actually not reducing it unless your parents can put that money up front, which of course who can, apart
You
from the
can.
kids who's come from wealthy homes. So that's what I love about here, that every kid gets access to a good school, everyone gets access to a good education, can go to university if they want to, can learn a trade if they want to. And
Exactly.
I think that's why it's a happy nation. Trains run on time, they're clean. You know, I mean, Danes complain about traffic, and I just laugh because God, good grief, try commuting around the M25, and I've said that many times on this podcast as well. So, but I think just how things just function.
Yeah.
I think that's why they're content because things function, things work. And yes, of course, the National Health Service, people can complain about that, but in my experience, it's been amazing every time I've had any type of access to the national health here. It's been absolutely brilliant.
I agree.
So I can't
I
fault it.
agree. I mean, I think it's, the fact, as you said, that things function. There are so many places in the world where
Yeah,
people are trying, and,
yeah,
I always give the benefit of the doubt. They're doing their best, but it's just not working as it should be, right? There are so
no,
many loopholes. There are a lot of different things that are happening. I would say it same as you. I mean, I'm always so glad and I feel so blessed that we live in a place where things do work. They could always be better, of course, but they do
yeah,
work.
yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll give you a bit of an insight, especially if you're new, or if you just arrived in Denmark or you're thinking of moving here, just to give you a little bit of insight from our experience. And this is how what we think and what our experience has been living here. But we'll be back again in a couple of weeks with a new podcast. But we just want to leave with just a few ideas of what it's like to actually live here. And to debunk a few of those myths that you'll probably be reading about or on podcasts or whatever you're listening to. But we'd love you to subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram as well. And we look forward to hearing more of what you'd like us to talk about in any of our podcasts coming up. We've got some fabulous guests lined up for the rest of the year. And just drop some points in the comments and we'd love to respond as well. So it's a goodbye from me, Lesley.
And a goodbye from me, Kathy, or maybe we'll talk to you soon again instead of goodbye.
Yeah, take care.